The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Illya Friedman.
Ben, it's episode 37.
Oh my God, I can't believe we're at episode 37 already. It grows up so fast.
Believe it. Here we are, episode 37.
And episode 37 is kind of a momentous episode.
I'll say.
In that, who do you interview?
Oh, it's a really good interview. In fact, it's one of my most favorite interviews of all time. And I think that I can actually say that we are now friends. A personal hero of mine.
Just say it. Say the name.
Seamus McGarvey.
Holy crap, Seamus McGarvey.
Yes, Seamus McGarvey. Weren't you just telling me about Bad Times at El Royale?
Bad Times at the El Royale, movie that I wanted to see in the theater, but since I have a baby, I don't get to do that.
I'm going to make a swear jar. Every time you mention the baby, you're going to have to throw like $1 into it now.
That's fine. But I just don't get to see movies in the theater. But I had a job in Seattle and I watched it on the plane and I loved it. And then I watched it again on my big screen at home because it's a beautiful looking movie. But yeah, Seamus McGarvey is a living legend, and here is your interview with him.
The Cinematography podcast interview.
Seamus McGarvey, thank you so much for coming on the Cinematography podcast.
It's lovely to be here, Illya. Thanks for inviting me.
I've really wanted this to happen for a long time, so I'm glad that it's happening right now. There is so many places that I hope that we will go in this relatively short interview. Some of our interviews go for a long time, but I'm just going to come out and say it. I love High Fidelity. I think High Fidelity is a fantastic movie, and that even though I'd seen the big tease, that was the first time I also really paid attention and noticed who you are in your work, and I've kind of been tracking you ever since then. So,
thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, I love the film, I really do, and it was a wonderful experience for me and a huge break in my career to get a film with a director of that caliber of Stephen Frears.
Oh, yeah.
But on repeated viewings, now that I know what end of a camera to look through, I would love to have an opportunity to relight that film, because there are some howlers of cinematographic ineptitude in it, and I'm really, it's not one that I'm particularly proud of, but I must say I love it as a movie.
You're far too modest. I think the look serves the story very well, and I feel like it all fits. And I mean, of course, you've gone on to do the Avengers and tons of other stuff since then, but it's like, no, I think it's an excellent movie, and I think that it shouldn't look any other way. That to me, yeah, I mean, I've fallen in love with it as it is. You should love your children, regardless of how they are. I think.
Well, for me, High Fidelity is the cinematographic runt of the litter.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I'm going to officially go on the record right now disagreeing with you that maybe it's not your favorite, but I think it is not without its charm.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, so the second thing before we talk about all the other great things you've done, Nosedive, which is of course the season 3 opener of Black Mirror, probably my favorite episode of the entire series. I think it's fantastic. I think it looks fantastic. I think you did tremendous work, and I know it's Joe Wright, right, who's the director of that. So
Exactly.
And I assume that's how you came to it.
Well, it was. We had worked previously on Pan, and the film Pan hadn't been well received, and that's an understatement. And it was a big budget movie for Warner's, and Joe was just feeling a bit low, I suppose, about how it had been received, and wanted to just get his fingernails dirty on something a bit more rough and tumble and a quicker shoot, something that was all ready to go. And he rang me up and he said, look, we've got this project, Nosedive, for Black Mirror. And I immediately, he had me at Black Mirror because I'd seen the previous series, loved it. And I loved Charlie Brooker's writing anyway as a columnist. And So the next thing we knew, we were both in Cape Town and shot it very quickly, a couple of weeks really, for a relatively low budget. And it was such a refreshing experience, well, for both of us. And it kind of, we both got our mojo back, cinematographic and Joe's directorial mojo back, after the big behemoth that had been Pan. We just had a wonderful time. It was winter time in Britain, so down in Cape Town, of course, it was some glorious summer, and we just had made this film in a very visceral way with a strong visual identity that was very different to anything Joe had done before and I had done with him, which was a kind of a wan, pale, pastel-y approach, almost sweet to the point of rotten, like overripe.
Oh yes.
But we had great fun.
Kudos to the production design on that too, because I mean, they did a fantastic job, and the palette that you had to work with there with all the colors, and I have no idea if it was true or not, because some shoots are hard and some shoots are easy, but I have to imagine in my sort of the back of my brain, it looks to me like, and Bryce Dallas Howard is having the time of her life with that role. Like I would hope so, but I would hope that everyone is having the time of their life. That looked like a really fun job to be a part of.
I think so. I think she did, and I think that the style of it was slightly tipped over. It was almost a Grand Guignol, vaudevillian style of performance.
Oh yes, it's on the upper register for sure.
Yeah, and we got to work also with great Cherry Jones, who is my neighbor, or was when I lived in LA. So we had a great time. It was the master class in acting when I was looking through the camera. And I loved every second of being there. I love South Africa as well.
Fantastic. So, wow. Okay. Now that I've talked about my own personal stuff here, I got to ask you about the two things that I'm really very fond of, and I've seen multiple times. Both of those things. I want to ask you, what's it like now having your pick of projects? Because I know in most cinematographers' lives, their career arcs, it starts off you take whatever that you identify with in some way. But now that I'm sure that the offers come in probably all the time. How do you pick and choose? How do you decide what speaks to you?
It doesn't really work like that. I mean, my career, it's not exact. It probably is an arc. That's probably on its descent now, but it has actually up until now been pretty roller coastery. I mean, it's consistent, admittedly and luckily. But, I do a whole range of projects, and sometimes I don't have the luxury of saying no to things or deciding or choosing, in fact. And actually, I don't mind that, because sometimes I just like that idea of gigging,
Sure,
to me, getting
gig.
out there. Yeah, getting out there. I enjoy being a cinematographer so much that whatever it is I'm shooting, I get a kick out of it, and I really do. I mean that. And so I do a whole diverse range of projects and enjoy. And I'm very lucky to say that I still get offered films, and sometimes I go through periods. In fact, this year I finished a film at the start of the year, and I thought, I'm going to take some time off. And then came to the end of the summer, and it was still crickets. And I was like, I've got to get a job really quickly, because I'm skint, broke. And I started ringing around, and nobody was calling. And I was like, oh my God, is that it? Is that the end? And luckily, I got a few commercials.
I know for sure that this is not your end. This is not at all. So I mean, come on. I'm talking to the person right now who shot both the Avengers and Atonement. So it's like, and this is kind of what I want to talk about. You have such a diverse body of work. You do a lot of different types of things, and very different looks in them too. It's not like you're not painting everything with the same brush.
No.
So
well, that's part of the challenge that I love doing, and it's not willful shifting of my photographic eye just for the sake of it. I love reading a script, seeing what lies within it, photographically speaking, and what the photographic signatures are that come out from the page at you. And coupled with that is the fact that on most projects you're working with another director, a different director, who inspires other notions in you through your collective conversations about the look of the film. Other ideas about how you might approach something visually occur. And that's actually the thing I love most about cinematography, is that I'm a different cinematographer with each project. That I'm the same person, obviously, but it's those binary conversations and beyond binary. They're not just me and the director. It's the designer, the costume designer, the hair and makeup. They all come together, and there is, particularly working with Joe Wright, for instance, there's a real democracy of ideas that occurs around the table where you kind of bounce off each other, and there's a definite creative electricity at work that produces, through the discussions about the project in hand, a different feel and look to each one that's appropriate to that film. So that's something that I've encountered with, for instance, working with Tom Ford on Nocturnal Animals. At the start of that project, we didn't even look at pictures. For a man who's renowned as a sort of image
designer,
genius and designer, we just talked around the notions of the film, the themes, the philosophies, and through that, it gradually, the ideas distilled purely in words, verbal terms, and then we were able to bring pictures into that. So there was a distillation process that was verbal and conversational up to that point, and that was really wonderful to see. It was like sieving water for gold, and that way I think that you come to a more eloquent and coherent use of cinematography towards the telling of a particular story.
I think that sounds like a fantastic way to work. If only they could always be like that. So
well, I'm not saying that it is, because there are things that are absolutely much more explosive and a Catherine wheel of ideas and influences, and sometimes that occurs in the bigger studio films where there are myriad influences at bay.
Notes and paint by number and storyboards that can't be deviated from, and
and the storyboards and the previs are very, very useful, and dare say, like, imperative for many of those special effects heavy and visual effects heavy movies. You just got to have them, but at the same time, what I try to remember is to just be a little bit more creatively elastic when it comes to shooting it, and that's the wonderful thing about a film set. It always gives me the shivers, actually. You arrive, for instance, on the Avengers, we were shooting in Albuquerque, and you come over, I was driving to work, and it's dawn, and you're coming up over the hill towards the studio there, and you come towards, and you're going past truck after truck after truck after truck after juggernaut, getting bigger and bigger towards the glow of the lights, and really the hairs are standing up on my arm, and you're thinking, the money this is costing, and the responsibility, and what if I mess this up today and I'll get fired, and blah blah blah, and the nerves of that. And then you get inside and you go through all the people, and you have your breakfast, and then you get into the inner sanctum of you, the director, the actors, the set. Clapperboard goes down and it's silence. It's the inner sanctum. There's a holy spot at the center that is the same on a Lynn Ramsey film. We need to talk about Kevin, as it is on Godzilla or the Avengers or any of the bigger ones that I've done, that is about you and the actors and looking. And it's you with your eye to the camera. I mean, you, the cinematographer, you're witnessing what millions hopefully will see. And it's an incredible position to be in. And it's something that allows you to say, do you know what, that's not quite working, and you become the voice of the millions in the audience who go, what were they thinking? So that you think there's a chance to change this, let's do it that way. And ultimately those are the multiple decisions that are instant and tiny that build to become the bigger whole, that become why an audience unconsciously absorbs an image and feels good about it, or a whole film and feels good about it and enjoys it, or deflects it and says, well, that doesn't taste good.
That's a great way to encapsulate encapsulate the experience, and it's clear that you have love for the pre-production process and for the production process when things are all going well. I have to ask you now, because the cinematographer's job doesn't end there usually. You also have then a big period of post, potentially. How do you still feel about that? I mean, it's a different type of work. Some people call it drudgery. Some people get very passionate about it. Some people love it. Once the cameras stop rolling and all the film has gone to the lab, or all of the rough cut is put together, and they start asking you for what was your intention here? What were you thinking? The colorists and everyone else who's coming involved. What's that process like for you? How do you feel about that?
Well, the biggest part of my job really is on the set, and prior to that in pre-production. Post-production, I obviously don't get involved in editing, but I really come in again at the DI process, the digital intermediate. So myself and a colorist, hopefully it's Steve Scott, a Technicolor, or
nice plug. It was very good. Steve Scott is going to have to listen to this one. Yeah. He owes you $20.
He doesn't need it, believe me. But he is a genius, and I look forward to that time where I sit in the DI, and really, I don't like to overwork an image, and that's why Steve comes into his own, because he can do extraordinary things to an image that are done with such a sense of taste and a velvet hand that they're done really in the spirit of the original photography, and but he makes me look really good in certain shots that really didn't look as good as he makes them. So I love that part of it. And sometimes, studios do allow for a certain amount of time, but probably not enough in the DI, or certainly not what I spend in terms of hours and days and weeks in the DI. But it's a very creative aspect of the cinematographer's job, and it's one that as cinematographers we've got to fight and insist upon our presence in. It's a lot can change with people who maybe aren't of the same sensibility as to what you intended when you shot the film.
Almost everyone I've ever spoken to about this says the same thing, that they need more time, and that they need people on their team who have the same sense of judgment. And it's kind of amazing how many people can get involved, and if dailies don't necessarily look like the final thing, people fall in love with the ungraded daily look and then wanted that to stay or to go back to. And I know those are battles that it seems like every DP has to fight. Okay, so I want to I know you, this isn't a Sophie's Choice sort of thing, but you've told me now that perhaps one of my favorite movies is the runt of your litter of things you've shot. Do you have a favorite? Is there a piece of work that stands out that you're really proud of, that you really like to have represent you, then, if it's not High Fidelity? So,
well, if High Fidelity was one of the first, the more recent one was Bad Times at the El Royale, and I say that because it's a film I'm very, very proud of, both just as a movie. I think Drew Goddard did a beautiful job in the writing of the script and the direction of this film. That's a real jewel, I think, and also in what we achieved together cinematographically. And the film, I don't think, has found its audience yet. It had a limited run in the cinemas, and I really hope that it can find its audience, almost the same way that The Greatest Showman did after it came out to mixed reviews. Bad Times actually had very good reviews, but it's not in the cinemas anymore, and I really would love it to be valued actually and seen, because I think it's a very special film, and I had such a great time doing it. We shot it on film. We shot it with a very distinct style and look with anamorphic lenses, all in a beautiful set that was designed by Martin Wist. We shot it in Vancouver with the set. It was one of the most beautiful sets I've ever had the joy to photograph and light. So I think it's a genuinely it's a cinematographic Fabergé egg, I suppose, because it's all full of lots of different areas of intrigue that you can go into and out of, and it starts with great writing and an amazing cast.
I think that you've just painted a lovely letter to your most recent work, which I'm excited to see it. I'm really looking forward to it. Seamus, are you on the Instagrams or the Twitters or anything like that? Do you do any of those things? Can someone follow you in a place if they so want to?
Yeah, I love Instagram, and I've always been on Facebook and a little bit. I'm an idle Twitter.
Well, fantastic. We will put all of your social media links in the show notes, and so anyone then who wants to follow your Instagrams and stuff can click on that and do that.
Yeah, it's a lovely way of. I don't put. I know a lot of cinematographers. My friend Chivo has got this extraordinarily curated sequence of images that I go on daily that I love.
Do you put your breakfast up there?
I don't put my breakfast, but it is epistolic and diaristic,
okay.
and it tends to have just things that I see fleetingly. And my law with my Instagram is that it has to be like quick draw McGraw, like iPhone pictures, which I just snap. So it's things that I see on the hoof, as Bresson said, l'image à la sauvette, like the decisive moment. And it's little things that I wouldn't take with my bigger camera. And I just love the iPhones for that you can snap stuff in an ad hoc, sketchy, and reactive way.
There's definitely that sort of spontaneity that comes from having a camera with you all the time that just gives you that sort of freedom and ability to instantly savor that moment, which I'm looking forward to the next generation. I think the next generation, they're going to be even better than they are now, and that'll be a thing. Anyway, Seamus, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was really, really great to have you.
Thank you for the invitation. I've loved talking to you.
Well, I'd love to have you on again sometime.
Look forward to it.
All right, that was Seamus McGarvey, and if I do say so, Illya, amazing job interviewing him.
Wow, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
That's good, because you're going to do more. Anyway, so Illya, you know what time it is.
Is it bill paying time?
It's time to pay those bills.
All right. Well, this time paying the bills, we have to thank our sponsor, ARRI. ARRI is a wonderful supporter of this podcast, and we don't usually double up on what we want to talk about with ARRI, but this one is so big, I think that it bears repeating.
Mm-hmm.
They have a new camera that is hotly anticipated, called the Alexa Mini LF.
LF stands for Larry Fong, by the way. Just ask Larry.
Yeah, that's true. He did say that. ARRI says it stands for large format. Large format being a larger imaging sensor, more resolution.
Mini large format.
Correct. Mini camera body, large sensor.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hotly anticipated. It's going to come out of the gate Netflix approved. It's got a UHD mode, which is ultra high definition. And producers out there who I've already been talking to about this are telling me they cannot wait to shoot on the new Mini. So the new Mini being the Mini LF. And I will tell you that we have had a lot of inquiries from people who pre-ordered this camera wanting to know when they're going to get theirs, and a lot of people out there who are planning to shoot with that camera who are already like, how do I make this happen? How do I get one?
What's the street date? Do we know?
Second half of 2019 is
so we're there.
So 180-day window basically is what ARRI has given themselves, but I expect them to start arriving sooner rather than later. So who knows? Maybe you'll be seeing some stuff soon.
So should people reach out to you at Hot Rod Cameras to purchase one of these?
Of course. If you've got a few ducats lying around,
it's a leading question. I know.
Yeah, you can contact me for sure.
All right. How much will one set you back?
A bit.
Okay, well that's fair.
Okay.
It's ARRI because it's the best stuff ever.
It's pretty incredible.
That should be ARRI. You can have that for free. That's your new slogan. ARRI. It's the best stuff ever.
And now, short ends.
All right, Ben. Bill paying time is over. What's your short end this week?
So my short end is kind of a grievance.
Is it grievance? Okay? Yeah. Well, mine's a grievance too. This is gonna be the grievance short end episode.
All right. Yeah, we have umbrage. All right. Cool. So DC Universe.
Never heard of them.
Okay, so that is...
I'm kidding.
Well, no, DC Universe is a streaming video on demand service, like Netflix or Amazon Prime or Shudder or whatever.
Specializing in the DC Universe properties.
Correct. Yeah, it's all DC
Batman,
stuff.
Batman, Superman, Wonder
So
Woman.
James Wan, who's who made Aquaman, who directed Aquaman, but is probably best known for directing, the first movie in the Saw series, and he's well known in the horror world. And so he's somebody who kind of straddles mainstream cinema and horror cinema. He co-created with some people a new reboot of the awesome classic comic book character Swamp Thing. This is a DC character. I don't know if you knew this, but John Constantine actually started as a spin-off of Swamp Thing. Interesting, right?
Really?
Yeah, so Swamp Thing was like a movie in the 80s.
I don't know what John Constantine is.
John Constantine, like from the movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves. And then also there was a TV series called Constantine. But more importantly, there was a comic book called Hellblazer that was all...
Hellblazer.
Hellblazer, not to be confused with Hellraiser.
Okay.
Hellblazer. So
or Hellboy.
Not Hellboy. That's a totally different comic book.
Okay.
You're making it very hard for me to tell my short end.
Shazam!
It was not Shazam. So they made for DC Universe, they made a Swamp Thing TV series. Full disclosure, I'm pretty good friends with Derek Mears, who plays Swamp Thing.
Yeah, I see. So this is all like, subtle publicity for your friend Derek.
Well, I wish it was.
Okay.
Because the day that the show dropped, which was like a week ago, they announced that it was canceled.
What?
So, and they're not, it's not like Netflix, so they're not releasing all the episodes at once. They're trickling them out week by week.
Even though it's canceled?
Correct. And supposedly, according to the news that I heard, the reason it was canceled was that they had a budget shortfall because they were shooting in North Carolina, and the North Carolina tax incentive didn't kick back the amount of money that they were supposed to get kicked back, and so they didn't have their full budget, so they didn't even finish shooting the season.
Okay, so wait a second. Is your grievance with North Carolina, or is your grievance with DC Universe, who canceled the show prematurely without even giving it a chance to find its audience?
Well, I think my grievance is with the entire situation. If I had to really lay my frustration at one individual's feet, though, it would be DC Universe. Why did you announce that a show was canceled the day that it arrived instead of letting us watch it and maybe fall in love with it and maybe find a reason to continue doing that show if it had a fan base? It was like they went out of their way to cut the fan base off at the heels before it could even exist. And I've watched the first 2 episodes, and it's really good. Like, it's really, really good. And I'm not just saying that because my friend Derek is playing Swamp Thing. It's creepy. There was Wes Craven made a Swamp Thing movie in the 80s, and then there was another sequel done, and then there was a TV series, and they were all a little campy. This is not campy. This is like dead serious, dark, and like a really good horror comic booky kind of monster series. And I'm just outrageously disappointed that DC would announce that it was canceled the day it dropped.
It was your dreams. Your dreams were dashed of basically a Shape of Water television series with a dark edge.
You clearly have never encountered anything from the Swamp Thing if you think it's like the Shape of Water.
Oh, I don't know.
I guarantee you Guillermo del Toro is a fan of the Swamp Thing.
Oh, okay. Well, and here I was just throwing out a little levity. I wasn't sure.
Jerk.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, you've got a grievance with the whole situation. I think it's interesting and apropos that we both have grievances this week. As you know, and we covered on the podcast, one of the big hits of Sundance this year was a movie called Brittany Runs a Marathon. It's a huge like fan favorite, and Amazon picked it up for several $1 million. The streaming services have been getting a lot of cred in the last few years since they've really sort of come into their own of doing things differently than traditional studios. So I expected that here's a movie that hits all quadrants, as they say, like, basically men and women under 25, over 25, people are going to love this. This is a broad comedy and dramedy. There's some drama in it. But one thing it's really not sort of a rom-com. That is not this movie. But if you watch the trailer that Amazon put out for Brittany Runs a Marathon, it plays on every single sort of like rom-com, girl empowerment, rom-com. Like it is trying so hard to fit.
Do they play Peter Gabriel's Salisbury Hill?
Oh, they might as well. It is wretched. And when I watched that, I was like, wow, I don't know what executives at Amazon saw this and thought, we're gonna get this rom-com market, and we're gonna alienate every other person, basically anyone
How much
who
you
was
want to
male.
bet they just extensively focus grouped it and came to that conclusion based on focus group data?
Well, these people also like Notting Hill, so they also will like that. I have no fucking idea.
I mean,
but
that's how all of those companies are working, is like on analytics and data and micro targeting stuff. So
yeah, well, it's a movie now I think that's going to be widely overlooked because it's going to be marketed to a very specific niche, and everyone else out there is going to be like, "What, that thing? Do I really want to watch that thing?" Which is too bad. So hey, it was a great movie. It was great people. Great product that was involved. Amazon, I thought, scored a huge home run by being able to take it home, and now who knows what's actually will happen.
So if because of what you say, people watch it regardless, then the Amazon people and
then the Amazon's right, and they should not listen to me.
Exactly. Amazon will be like, see, this is how we market it. Giant hit, and screw you, Illya. You totally don't know how to market our shit. And likewise with DC at me, probably they're
gonna be like, thank God we got away from that stench. Yeah. We got to put our money somewhere else, and clearly not into this thing, even though Ben Rock liked it.
Yeah, it's just a serious bummer because when you see I think we're both complaining about the same thing. Good craftsmanship being not
trampled on by the man.
Yeah, by the big old man with his big boots.
I'm pretty sure that only other sort of curmudgeon-y, get off of my lawn, older folk like us even want to listen to these rants. I'm pretty sure that anyone under a certain age was like, these guys are so negative. We should just turn off this podcast right now.
Well, we're generally not this negative. In fact, usually we try and find something we love, like Chernobyl. But that's also just,
Yes, on a lighter note, Chernobyl.
Anyway.
Next up, Fukushima. I guarantee you there's some people over at Showtime right now. Can we get the rights to Fukushima?
I know.
Oh, it's
so
terrible.
funny. Like, remember when the Social Net? This is apropos of nothing. Remember when the Social Network came out? There was a book that had come out a year before that called "Stealing MySpace," and I maintain to this day MySpace is a more interesting story than Facebook.
Interesting.
Just because it's the people who did it are monsters.
Wow, I know nothing about the MySpace people.
Well, maybe we'll save this for another short end.
Maybe someone already has the rights to it.
I know. If not, call me.
Oh, do you have the rights to it?
No.
All right. So Ben, I think that just about does it for us. Where can people find you?
I can be found on the internet. How about you?
Yes, I can also be found on the series of tubes known as the internet. Or is it full of cats? I don't remember what it is. It's one of those.
Mine is full of owls.
Owls, really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Not baby hedgehogs being tickled. So,
no.
They're
just owls.
Yeah.
They're kind of angry.
Angry owls.
Talons. Nasty little beaks.
Wow. All right.
So
find you on the web with owls.
Please. And
not at Neptune Salad.
At Neptune Salad is my Twitter handle, and benrockonline.com is my website.
Have you tweeted lately?
I tweet constantly, so yes, I have. I've tweeted a lot lately.
All right. Well, hey, you can find me over at Hot Rod Cameras. You can find me on the Instagrams at Hot Rod Cameras. You can find me on the Twitter, I guess, at Illya Friedman. I have not tweeted lately, so you really don't need to do that. But over at Instagram, you can find me there.
Snapchat?
No, I don't snap nor chat.
Yeah, we're both too old for that. So before we go, we'd like to thank, as always, Kays Alatrachi for 100% of our music.
Who's not going to hear our thank yous? Thank you, Kays.
Thank you. Go to his website, musicbykays.com.
And our editorial staff, Ben Katz and Abby Corbett, thank you so much for putting these things together.
And I just met Ben for the first time in person.
Wasn't that awesome?
Last week. Very nice guy.
I was at our very cool Cine Beer event.
That was cool, and yeah.
That should have been my short end. My short end should have been Cine Beer, because it was awesome.
It was awesome.
I could have promoted myself. And maybe episode 38.
Yeah, well, maybe promote Cine Beer before Cine Beer next year.
Yeah, rather than after. You're right. Yeah, good call. Good call.
And lastly, as always, we want to thank Alana Cody for being the most awesomest producer, much better than what we deserve.
Yes, that's true. All right. Until next week.
Stay cinema-y. I don't know. We don't really have a good catchphrase.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Till next time, clear your f-stop. I don't even know
Whoa. What does that even mean?
It doesn't mean anything. It's a mystery. Bye.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.